Ernest Nadome is the Assistant Secretary General of the Central Organization of Trade Unions, COTU. He is also the General Secretary of the Kenya Electrical Trades and Allied Workers Union, KETAWU. Ernest, good morning.
Good morning to you, Eric.
Karibu sana to Kenya's Biggest Conversation.
Asante.
Good to see you, man. You've been on this for a while.
Yeah, I will say for quite some time.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana. And, thank you very much, because this is my first time to be here, and it's a great honor to be invited here.
We hope to have some fruitful conversations on the plight of workers, the welfare of workers, and how to create a good workplace. The Kenya Electrical Trades and Allied Workers Union. Introduce us to this union.
This is a union that was established in 1985. Prior to that, we are under a union called Amalgamated Workers Union. That is until 1985. But we also have an history behind that. The year 1968, we used to have the Electricity Power Union, which in early 70s, we broke and now joined the Amalgamated Workers Union. It reached a time where the workers in the electricity sector felt that they were not represented. So the then members, the leaders who were there, agitated now for the split, for the formation of the Electricity Workers Union, which came into being now in 1985. From 1985, the union has been in existence. We've had the founder, General Secretary, the late, is called Pius Masika. Thereafter, in the year 1996, we ousted him, removed him from office, and it happened that that particular point in time, I was also part of that team, and I was elected.
You're part of the ousters, the cool leaders.
And not really ousting, but changing leadership. Right. Because if you guys remember, there are those guys, power brokers of this country, and so sorry with the due respect, Samuel Gishuru, who was the managing director of Kenya Power. And there were many things that were happening in the sector at that time. And some of us who were in Kenya Power College, we started agitating for change of leadership and change of terms and conditions of service. Because ironically, in college, you are whatever we were earning in comparison to what we will get when you get absorbed was far much lesser. So it didn't make any sense. So immediately when you were in college, you started agitating. And when I got employed now in 1991, and those hydro stations, Kamburu, and I joined forces with my colleagues because the then General Secretary had slept with the employer. We said now we must move in and get the right leadership. And we came in, and the most interesting thing, how we came in, it was not that easy, because you can imagine those who were in leadership were so close to the powers that be. And what we had to do, because we had a lot of strikes by then. So we decided in 1996, when there was an SK show in Mombasa, and the late president of Mugabe was a chief guest, we decided to switch off power at the SK show. And that is when His Excellency, the late President Moi, asked, what is it? Why is power off? And that is when he was told by the late Energy Minister, Nicholas Biwott, that Kenya Power employees are not happy about the leadership. Then what is it? He said they want the union, those leaders who are elected, to be registered. Immediately there, His Excellency the President directed the then Attorney General, Amos Wako, to direct the Registrar of Trade Union, by then the late Omondi Mbago, to register us. So that is how we came into the leadership. Right. Now, Kenya Electrical Trade and Allied Workers Union has a membership of almost 15,000. And we draw our members, majority of them are from Kenya Power. We also have employees, members from KenGen, Geothermal Development Company. We have GDC. We have KETAWU now. We have also brought them on board. We have other independent power producers like Haiba Africa. We have Rabai Power. And other small allied firms that we're also representing. We have Zika Power also are our members. So I think that is what I also want to say.
15,000 members.
Yeah.
Hey.
But the potential is more.
Okay.
The potential is more because we still have EPRA, energy, the regulatory body. We are also moving in to get rural electrification employees. So the entire energy sector. We, in fact, in our constitution, the way the trade unions are set, it's sector-based. So it is upon us now to make sure that we recruit all these members who are in the electricity subsector.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the role of these unions? What is the role of this particular union that brings together all of these people from different organizations? What's the role?
Trade union per se and is all over. Ours is to represent the interests of our members in terms of, I would say, conditions of work. And this is normally comes in the form of what we are calling collective bargaining agreement. Essentially, that is our role where we are able to represent the employee who works from morning up to evening, must have a union that represents the interests, conditions of service. If you're talking about safety, you're talking about pay, you're talking about security of work. That is how we come in. And generally also, as trade union, we also play a role in ensuring that we have the right policies that take interest, cater the interest of workers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you look at it from an umbrella position over the country, if you look at when this union, for example, this one is represented by you, came into place, and do a comparison between how workers, either organized themselves or how they were treated or supported, and then with the entrance of a union, how have we seen that the condition of workers has changed, improved because of the existence of unions?
That's a very good question. Remember when I told you there was that agitation to form our own union in 1985. Prior to that, when we were in an amalgamated union, I can tell you the situation of workers was dire. And I must say this on television. By then, Kenya Power employees, you see these protective army boots that you put on, employees could not afford. The situation was so bad.
Those are safety
boots. Those are the shoes you put on 24/7. What does that tell you? It tells you the situation was bad. Living conditions, working conditions were bad. The accidents were rampant. And then there was total exploitation. Dismissal and termination was the order of the day. From that time, 1985, the journey that we've traveled up to now.
At that point, this was a state corporation.
Correct.
Kenya Power and Lighting Company. It was still one. So you're saying there was exploitation by a state corporation?
Of course, yes. You see, those who were in leadership, terms and conditions were terms of conditions of service employees were at the mercy of those who were in the leadership. That is why now the union said no. The workers said no. We want our own union that is going to advocate or agitate for our rights. So the formation of the union really brought in order. The formation of the union now enabled the workers to have a mouthpiece that was able to have a sit down with the employer, argue the case, and say now, this is what we normally do. At the end of when we are due for collective bargaining agreement, we sit down with the employer and now say, inflation has hit us. Like now we are talking of 9% inflation. When we go and sit down with the employer, first, like what is happening currently or the trend, you must be able to justify the demand that you want. So when the union was formed, they started now in earnest. And I can tell you, because when there is order at workplace, when the employer appreciates what the employee does, when the employer recognizes and rewards those who are good workers, then it even motivates others to work hard. And that is what the union brought in, where in a collective bargaining agreement, you have a provision for promotion. You have a provision for yearly increment. You are able to sit down with the employer, let's share the cake. So that is the difference I would want to say. You can imagine those years in Kenya Power, where we started, people were putting on those kind of shoes. There were no even protective clothing, and now come where we are. I'm not saying we are already there, but I can proudly tell you that journey we've traveled. Yeah, an employee of Kenya Power will tell you now, I own a house, I drive a vehicle. Yeah, those who've been there for long. Yeah, at least they can proudly say the journey we've traveled. But let me put a rider. We are not yet there.
Yeah.
We are not yet there because we still have those new employees. We still have challenges. Maybe I'll come to that later. What is the current status? Maybe for the last 5 years, how has the sector been? I know there's a lot to talk about.
Sure.
But generally, it's a journey that when I look back even in my position, I look back since 1985 or 1996, I look back and I can proudly say that even if I exit the union, I'll leave with my head held high, that at least there's something I've done.
So, Ernest, workers in the electricity sector are the main ones that you represent in this union. This includes, like you said, Kenya Power, KenGen, Geothermal Development, some IPPs like Rabai Power, Thika Power, and others. Now, the power sector has been facing issues and challenges. Every time nowadays we talk about power, you're like, okay, so cost of power is high. So we go for, if there's an outage in your estate and you call and they come, you just look at how long it takes to get issues resolved and you ask yourself, so what's happening in this sector? Is it healthy? Like, do we have a healthy energy sector in Kenya?
I will say yes and no. I will say that, and if you allow me to draw a parallel, Kenya Power positions itself as a very critical entity within the sector. Yeah. Kenya Power, whatever happens in Kenya Power has a ripple effect in the other utilities. And the challenges in Kenya Power date back to almost 10 years. And I always like drawing a parallel between Kenya Power and KenGen. I do that because KenGen is a child, let's say, an offspring of Kenya Power, where I used to work. I was in Kenya Power when I started working until 2000. Now, when they separated, I remain in KenGen, in those power stations. And let's stretch back for the last 20 years. Kenya Power, KenGen, has had three, almost I will say now, maybe with the acting CEO, 4 CEOs for the last 20 years. We started with Edin Njoroge, by then, when the new government, Kibaki government, came into power. Yeah. Then later on, we had Albert Mugo, engineer. Then we had our current CS now, Rebecca Miano. And then we have the acting now, MD Abraham Serem. If you look at Kenya Power, the last 20 years, I mean, not even in the interest of time, I will not mention all the MDs. we are talking over 10 managing directors. The boards, we have almost had 10. In KenGen, barely have they been 3. And this has had a big problem in Kenya, with Kenya Power, where there is a very, very high turnover of the board, high turnover of the CEO. This has really affected service delivery in Kenya Power. And this has even been compounded by interference. Interference, I will emphasize that, by the government, the national government. because it's like Kenya Power has been a cash cow for successive governments to the extent that it has affected its stability. We've made noise. And we are now appealing to the current government because now you've seen in the newspaper, we are now having new CEOs being appointed in the sector. In Kenya Power, they did interviews sometimes back, fast, before even GDC, before KETAWU. And we could see the same problem now, Kenya Power. You interviewed the CEOs, you've not appointed up to now. The other institutions that did the interviews 2-3 weeks ago, they have appointed their CEOs. So you can see there are a lot of intrigues, there are a lot of interest. And this is what has affected Kenya Power for us. I must speak this as a workers' representative. Where you see an employee of Kenya Power out there, you think that employee is wrong. You think that employee is the one who is not attending or doing what is expected of him. You've mentioned rightly about our people attending to shutdown, our people connecting meters. You see, at the end of the day, what an employee requires is be facilitated. This employee requires materials. This employee requires protective gear. This employee requires equipment. You need, if you're talking of meters, and we've had those complaints, these are challenges that we are facing. You want to be erected a pole. You have applied electricity for the last 2 years, and you start calling us names. I will give an example of a previous board that was there. That took almost 2 years to approve a procurement plan. We are in boards, and we know what it means. The role of the board, when you approve a procurement plan, then the rest will roll out. So the previous board, we have those kind of challenges. We've made presentations, we've made submissions that if you want to turn around Kenya Power, this is what will happen. At least there is a relief now. We have a new government where we're expecting leadership. We are expecting order in the sector, and we hope because at least for the new board that is there, Kenya Power, we have had an opportunity to sit down with them, share with them, tell them our perspective, what should be done. But most importantly is the worker. And I'm not trying to take sides here. The Kenya Power employee is demoralized. The Kenya Power employee, you're talking of somebody who has served for 15, 20 years without a promotion. This is what we are battling with. The Kenya Power employee has been a cashier for the 10, 15 years. The Kenya Power employee, currently, as you rightly put, why do employees take 10 hours to come to attend to those breakdowns? There is serious shortage of staff in Kenya Power, but we are happy that at least the new board now has taken it upon themselves to see how they can enhance the numbers. We have sat down with the employer about the issues of the plight of workers. They are demoralized. We've told them this is what we want, and now there is a roadmap on what we intend to do. I know the employees will want it even now, but what we are telling the employees, just be patient. There is goodwill with the new board, and hopefully we get a substantive CEO. With a substantive CEO, things will work out. But we cannot continue having for the last 5 years acting CEOs who cannot make decisions, who are at the whims. Any decision they make is at the whims of the board or at the CS Minister for Energy.
How is the union supported? I mean, very simply, how does the union now then make a little bit of money to make sure that all of these activities that you clamor for are actually met? Where does your funding come from?
Our funding from the union, let me say, it's not even funding. Our upkeep. Upkeep for the union comes from the members through a check-off, and this is what all the unions go through, where at the end of the month, members contribute in form of a check-off to the union, and this money that we receive is what now takes care, caters for our activities, pays our salaries, because those of us now who are there, who are permanent, we are permanently now working for the union. We are not in any way drawing any salary from the employer. These are the monies that facilitate our moving around. But we are faced with the same challenges, just like other institutions. Like now, the challenges all Kenyans are facing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Even as you talk about the challenges then that workers are facing, the question that comes to my mind is, what responsibility then do employers have? Or, what nudging? How far is your influence as unions then over employers? That just because you say something, do they have to listen to you? Why would it be in the interest of an employer to say, okay, the unions have brought this to our attention, workers are working under difficult conditions, the safety matters taken into consideration, for example, and to say, like, for example, there is instability in the workplace because of the changing of the guard so often. Why would they have to listen to you as employers? They could say, we're doing our best. Once it gets better, it gets better. Why would they have to listen to a union?
I think any good employer will have to recognize and appreciate the role of the union. In a setup where you have almost 10,000 employees and you don't have a voice, you don't have an organ that you can use to reach out to them, then you're in problems.
Sure.
So we come in as a union because currently as the situation is, all is not well with the employees. We are even talking of a collective bargaining agreement that has not been there for the last 2 or 4 years. We want to negotiate. It is us, it's the medium, it is us, the link between management and the workers. It is us now who are able to sit down with the employer, present workers' issues. These are the challenges workers are facing. The employer is able now to put us through that, yes, like now the situation that Kenya Power faced for the last 3-4 years, where there was a subsidy of 15%, and the government said they will pay 14 billion. The government ended up paying Kenya Power only 7 billion. There was a shortfall of 7 billion. The other utilities were also supposed to pay Kenya Power. You see, when you have such information as workers' representative and you see the reality, what Kenya Power is going through, then we appreciate and we do the same, go down with the management. That's what we do. Go to talk to the workers, explain to them the situation. And then from there, even workers, occasionally, they will even tell us, these are areas of spillages. These are areas that you are saying, you're not doing well here. The employees will tell you, why are you having contractors doing work? And here we are idle. We are not doing anything. What is the justification? So these are things that, and a company like Kenyan, I will give an example where there is innovation. There is a good to great where innovation is being, employees now encouraged to come up with new ideas. And this is what Kenya Power now intends to do. So for us as a union, we are partners in business.
Partners with whom? The
employer. With the employer, we are partners in business where we are able to sit down with the employer and tell them, no, this can't work. And also, we are also very good whistleblowers. Where there is abuse in an entity, where we know there is outright theft by the managers. And we have been able to point out this, even we've gone public. And even written letters to EACC, written letters to DCI. There is abuse here. We have some rogue employers, rogue managers, and there are even some government officers who are messing up the company. Do
you think the role of unions, just looking at that, and this is what we are saying, that, getting to a place whereby the workforce is protected in this country, and using, the power sector as an example. I hear and I listen and I see examples of countries where the unions are so strong that if an employee sneezes, the employer is very careful about what they will say, do, or how they will react because of the strength of a union. How do you think then that this union here that we use as an example, or even those, around the country, can make it so much so that they influence directly just how protected an employee would be?
Thank you. I'll just give an example of a recent case where we represent workers in geothermal development company. There is, and I will say for lack of a better word, a rogue contractor went to court. Has been in court since last year. And got an order to freeze the account of the Geothermal Development Company. It's been in the public domain. And when that happened, we didn't know the details. We didn't know what was happening. It affected employees of GDC. They didn't get their salary. There were many challenges at work where vehicles were grounded. You could not even fuel, imagine, a parastatal vehicle. So what did we do? We communicated with the employer. We gave an ultimatum. We want to know what is happening. And the employer was really not serious. So what did we do? We called a press conference and said, now we are going to issue a strike notice. Immediately after that, the branch leadership also went in Nakuru, issued a presser, and it did not take a day. So the next day we were called by the board chair, we were called by the MD, we sat down, we were taken through, they took us through what was happening, they explained to us, and we told them, no, this is unacceptable. We raised a few issues here and there, and I'm happy that meeting was fruitful, because now workers were able to go and explain to them, this is what is happening in the company. And the issues that could be attended or addressed were done immediately. For Kenya Power, it is in the public domain. We many years we've been on the street. We are known. We used to call mother of all strikes. But you see, over time, before even the new labor laws came in, we now have the legal and institutional framework where we are able to sort out a number of issues. I can tell you we do many things all the time. We do collective bargaining agreement. In fact, every day, unions sign collective bargaining agreement. And we normally pride ourselves as trade union that we help also the country in trying to alleviate poverty. You can imagine, even here Standard Group, sorry to say with due respect, you can't just sit down there and wait to get a salary increment tomorrow morning. There is no employer who can do that. So for us, we come in as a union and say, no, demand. And that's our language. We demand. We have done our bit. And we share the cake. That is now how we come in. So as trade union, we are involved in policy. We participate in policy formulation. When you're talking about economic growth, those particular employees, you now, Eric, working for Standard Group, if you have a union, I doubt whether you're in the union, but if you are a member of the union, I'm sure the union negotiates for you. And when the union negotiates for better terms and conditions of service, what does that tell you in terms of what role are we playing nationally? So that is how now we come in. So as a workers' representative, we will continue. That is our role. We know we're operating under very difficult environment currently, where employees' civil servant salaries are delaying, where counties have not gotten their salary for 3 months and thereabout. So this is the environment that we operate. But maybe just to respond to what also she was talking about, when you're talking about strong union strikes. One thing that we observe the law. We are very good in really making sure that we adhere to the provisions of the law. We now have the labor courts. We have the labor courts. We have an elaborate machinery that addresses dispute workers' issues. And this came in with the 2007 labor laws, where now right from the shop floor. And I think that's where people need to understand. The environment, we now have what is called the gig economy. The informal economy. We are talking of 85% of Kenya is in the informal economy. So as trade union, our role now is really to make sure, what do we do? You may look at us here nationally, but at the International Labour Organization, where I've been attending the conference with Mr. Tuli and my other team members for almost the last 15 years, every year, June this year we will be going. That is where we come up with conventions at the international level. Like now, the other day, my boss actually pleaded with Excellency the President, and he accepted. They want now to pass the gender-based violence convention, which we passed 2 years ago at the ILO. So this is the role that we play. We do it at the international level, but when we now come to back home, we now impress upon...
You domesticate it.
You domesticate it. We are talking of the issues about social protection. NSSF, what is happening now with the NSSF? This is something, this has been our baby. We've had Kenya, somebody retiring for 10, 15 years. You get a lump sum of 20, 40,000, you go nothing, and that's why people die. We've been pushing. After we passed that, the Social Protection Floor Convention 202, we came in and said, the government, we need NSSF to be reformed. Now, at least, though there is an outcry, but there is one thing. In the next 5, 10 years, people will be happy because now anybody will be retiring, will be on a pension.
They'll start seeing a pension.
They'll start seeing the fruits of that.
Why is it that Kenyan Power attracts so much attention and most of that attention seems to be negative?
Yeah, good. I think, and I mentioned it, CT, the challenges Kenya Power is facing. Instead of Kenya Power now coming out as an entity to go and market itself out to the public, Kenya Power has been doing firefighting.
Why? And you have a monopoly?
You see, I'm talking about firefighting because of leadership. Not getting the right leadership. I must say that, not getting the right leadership. Not getting, like now, I know the issues of IPP. You guys, I don't want to go to that, but I just want to clear there on one issue, which I know it has been in Parliament, and it was also mentioned here by one of the members of Parliament, the chair of the Senate Committee, about the Kenya Power Pension Fund. I happen to be a trustee, and I happen to be a chairman of one of those committees. There is a difference, there is a distinction between Kenya Power Pension Fund and Kenya Power and Lighting Company. It is distinct because it is completely separate. The way the pension fund is run is clear, is regulated by Retirement Benefit Authority. So what happens when an existing employee in Kenya Power contributes, let's say 5% of his salary, employer contributes 10%, that totals to 15%. That amount is remitted to the pension. This particular pension is run by a board of trustees. And according to the Retirement Benefit Authority, there has to be representation of the employer, there has to be representation of employees, appointed and nominated. So in our case, we have retirees representation, the union is there, and the employer is there. So once money has been remitted, it is now upon the pension fund to make sure that this particular contribution, the money they have gotten, they invest it wisely so that they get higher return. So where you invest, there is nobody who is going to dictate to you, but the Retirement Benefit Authority has also requirements where areas that the asset classes where you're supposed to invest. For the case of the Gulf Power that you're talking about, that is an unquoted asset class, which we are allowed by
so
the
are
employer.
You saying that your pension fund has a lot of money?
Yes, I can proudly say that we are now clocking almost 40 billion. The pension fund is worth 40 billion.
What's your shareholding in Gulf Power?
It's 10%. And I think this needs to come out clearly because people don't understand. In fact, the Presidential Task Force on power purchase agreement flagged off that issue. But when they delved deeper into it, they realized these are two different entities. And I think we will also be able to make a presentation to the Senate, to make them understand that we are a different entity altogether. And what drives the pension scheme is return on investment. In fact, IBA Africa, we used to invest in them as a pension fund. We exited after we made our money, and now
in fact, even Gulf Power. Okay. Ernest, thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you for sharing all this information with us about union and what the union does. Ernest Nadome is the Assistant Secretary General of the COTU and the General Secretary of the Kenya Electrical Trades and Allied Workers Union.